Very.
Thanks,
Where
sir.
is your base?
It's out Lynchburg, Virginia, about 3 hours away.
Yeah, I know where Lynchburg is. That's great. I'm very, very impressed.
Yeah, so when I went to a 2 year military college in Alabama. That's where I got an early commission in my associate's degree. It was a 2 year program. So then
Hmm.
when I went to Liberty, I finished off my bachelor's, and everything was just kind of located there. So even though now I'm outside of DC, it's only a drive past Charlottesville for me once a month.
Right.
Actually, Lynchburg is a pretty long drive. I've been there many times. It's a
Thank
pretty
you.
long
You know,
drive.
I kind of like it though
Right.
because you're escaping, the Beltway, and you're just
Hmm.
going more and more into the country. So it's just a
Oh,
really
God
nice
bless you, sir.
time
God
to.
bless you, sir. Very
Thank you.
impressive. Very impressive. Very impressive. Very,
Thank
very
you.
impressive.
Okay, we're going to start in 1 minute. Remember, people are listening on YouTube.
God bless them all. God bless them all. Here's some medicine I have to take 4 or 5 times a day to keep my hair.
Oh, there he is.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's Ben.
Yeah.
I'm so delighted that we have Ben. God bless him. God bless his soul. Glenn, where's my cold Diet Coke?
Okay, we're going to start. You guys ready? Glenn?
I'm ready, sir. I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, I want to welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. I'm Judah Friedman, and thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, please subscribe to the YouTube channel at The World According to Ben Stein. Like us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein, and follow us on Parler at Ben Stein. Tell your friends, tell your loved ones, tell your enemies. Just
tell your enemies.
them.
That's really good. No, sorry, go ahead.
Joining us once again is the other Ben Boychuk, managing editor of American Greatness. Good seeing you, Ben.
Happy to be back.
Great shirt. And
Thank you.
Of course, let's also welcome podcaster extraordinaire and Parler's director of outreach, Remzo Martinez. Howdy,
Bless you, sir.
Remzo.
God bless you, sir. God
What
bless you,
is
sir.
up? It's been so long since we last saw each other, Judah.
It's been too long. And joining us soon will be, of course, Mr. Esoteric himself and Nixon historian Louis Esoteric Fine.
God bless him. I hope he's well.
And of course, the man of the hour, author, economist, Emmy Award winner, and America's humble servant, Benjamin Jeremy Stein.
Honored to be here, sir.
Honor to have you here, sir. And I want to welcome everybody that's listening on YouTube, and of course the people in attendance here. For a little brevity on a Friday night, I decided to come up with this topic: who has Ben Stein not met? And I thought of this because I've known Ben for 17 years, and somebody the other night was impressed with our ZZ Top story. So I want to add a couple surreal stories of we were out in the desert, Ben, one time, and you had said to me, you and Karl Rove were on the phone or something, and he had to go. We picked him up to drive him to a country club or something.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And Remzo and Ben, as I'm looking in the rearview mirror, I'm like thinking to myself, I've got Karl Rove in the back seat. Ben's telling Karl Rove, this guy, this Judah, he's just brilliant. And I'm just looking in the rearview mirror going, I don't know how surreal this could be, and or how surreal this could get. And then there's another story, not a sad story, but when you were spoke at John Hughes's memorial service, somebody walked up to you and said, "Hi, I'm Vince. Nice to meet you." And you said, "Hi, I'm Ben Stein." And he goes, "Vince Vaughn, nice to meet you." And Ben, actually afterwards, you had called me and said, "Is Vince Vaughn a famous actor or something?" And that's the world according to Ben Stein. And that is who you've met along the way. I mean, there have been, so I'll open it up because I know Remzo has a lot of interest in this. I know the people out there, I'll get to your questions. So Remzo, go first.
Okay, Ben, as you've probably seen, I'm kind of a comic book nerd. And there's one person that every comic book nerd knows, and that name's Stan Lee. God rest his soul. You met Stan
Lee? I had
Lee?
him on my talk show. He was great.
When was that?
Well, my talk show, I think, I ran for 3 seasons, that's all, on Comedy Central. And it would have been either 98, It shouldn't be either or. It should be 98, 99, or 2000, I think. I don't remember which. But yeah, he was very, very nice guy. Couldn't have been better. Did not in any sense brag at all. He was very humble about his incredible achievements. Great, impressive guy.
Oh, that's wonderful. The last and only time I ever saw him was at a convention here in D.C. It was the summer before he passed in December of 2017, 2018 actually. And I remember sitting next to my brother, and I looked at him like, Ryan, Stan Lee's health is not that great. He might not be around much longer. This is going to be one of those moments hopefully we'll remember. And not even 3 months later, he finally passed away. So I'm glad that within my lifetime, I was at least in the same room as the man that brought me and so many other people I know so much joy.
Yeah, amazingly talented, creative man. I think the art and artistry of comic books has never been adequately appreciated. They were appropriated by the great, fantastic Roy Lichtenstein, and he made them into gigantic works of art. I am proud to own some of them. I bought them in the days when I was rich, and they're great. They're amazing. I can't think of any better artistry right off the top of my head at all.
So there you are, Ramzo. Those are my drives down to the desert when you're sitting there, and you're a hero of yours, an icon of yours, and Ben has had him on his talk show.
Yeah, and it couldn't have been nicer or more humble. And I think at some point I don't know whether it was a daughter or granddaughter met some child of his who must have been fantastically rich if she was an heir to his income wealth. And she was very modest and self-effacing as well, if memory serves, which it might not.
Okay, you, Ben Boychuk.
Well, Ben, we've talked in the past a lot about your time in the Nixon administration and in that whole world. I was wondering if you had ever crossed paths with any of Nixon's enemies, and in particular, the one that I'm most curious about is: have you ever met Alger Hiss?
Oh God, no, Alger. That would be it. I mean, I'm old, but that's a whole generation older than I am, maybe 2 generations older than I am. I mean, Alger Hiss was a high official in the State Department in the 40s before I was born. So I mean, he was alive when I was a young man, and but I mean, he lived an astonishingly long time. But some of these old commies are very tough, and but I never met him. I did meet. Speaking of Nixon's enemies, I did meet John Dean a number of times, and I never liked him. It's funny. He when I looked at him at the White House mess, which was the White House dining room, he never looked like he belonged there. He always looked like he should have been selling timeshares somewhere in Queens or something like that. He did not look like he belonged at the Nixon White House at all.
That guy's been dining out on Watergate for 50 years.
I know. And every time he talks about it, it gets to be a worse and worse tragedy for America. And I guess it has to be, I mean, it's like the stripper has to just take off more and more and more as she gets older. Something like that. I don't know. But he's a person whose untrustworthiness has been extremely well documented over the years.
Okay,
so I see. I might be wrong.
So let's get this out of the way right away from one of the fans. Have you met Joe Biden?
I met him in passing a long time ago in some event on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay. He is from Maryland, Delaware, I beg your pardon, which is on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay. And I was at some event, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it had to do with the Eastern Shore, and he was there, and I just met him in passing. That's all, just in passing. I don't have the slightest acquaintance with him at all.
What about Thomas Sowell, fan asks?
I'm sorry?
Thomas Sowell. You
mean the economist, the African-American economist? Met him many times. Very capable, talented guy, a very impressive guy. I like him a lot.
So we have another question. Ray Bradbury.
No, and I'm not even, you mean the science fiction writer?
Yes.
I've never met him. I mean, I'm familiar with the fact that he is worshipped by science fiction fans, but I don't really know him at all. I wouldn't know him if he were sitting in the room with me right now. I wouldn't know him.
We were
Well,
getting
he can't be
bombarded.
because he passed away about what 10, 12 years ago now.
Well, there you are. I think
You might have.
he would be noticeable by his appearance if he had passed away 10 or
He
12
lived
years
for
ago.
that long?
Yeah, no, I may be off a little bit. You may have crossed paths with him without realizing it, Ben, because I this was at a Los Angeles Festival of Books maybe 15 years ago. You were there signing.
Oh my God!
How,
Wow! Do you have a memory? Wow! Yeah, I remember the event. It was at UCLA.
it was at UCLA. You were
I
signing
remember
How
it
to
very
Ruin Your
well.
Life. Yeah, and
Yeah, that was I think my best-selling book I ever wrote. That's great. Thank you for reminding me.
I
Thank you
still
very
have
much.
my signed copy somewhere. But
God bless you, sir.
Ray Bradbury was speaking at that event, and he might have
Then maybe I did meet
signed
him.
it.
God bless you. I must say, almost everyone seems to have a better memory than I do. It's really impressive. I'm very, very happy that you reminded me of that. It's very possible then that I did meet him.
Okay, so we have another one. Have you ever met John Wayne?
Yes, I met him at a party here in Hollywood. When I first moved here, he was quite old. Or it might have been actually when I was here visiting, when I was still working at the Wall Street Journal, but he was a handsome guy then, and I remember thinking it looks like you would not want to have a fast draw contest with him.
This is amazing. I'm getting like Tennessee Williams and Marlon Brando.
Never met Tennessee Williams. Never met Marlon Brando.
Okay, Remzo, what do you got?
Wes Pruden from the Washington Times.
Met him long time ago. I think I've actually met him several times at dinners of the American Spectator. The American Spectator is a wonderful magazine that I've been writing for since the early 70s. And they have not a lot, but over the years, they've had quite a number of very nice dinners. And I think I met him at them, I think more than once.
That answers that, but we're getting like just a ton. I mean, this is, but Gloria Steinem, Paul Newman.
I have been at parties with Gloria Steinem when I was at the Wall Street Journal as a columnist covering movies and TV shows and Broadway and ballet and opera and all kinds of stuff. And I used to go to get invitations to almost every kind of event you could think of. And I mean, just my mailbox would be chock full of invitations. And I met her at something or other, but I've never liked her. And I certainly didn't form a lasting relationship with her, to put it very mildly.
And Jennifer Scott, I will answer your question. Yes, he has met Henry Kissinger.
Many times, and he has never had a very long conversation with me, but he had the last conversation I had with him. He asked me how old my father was when he died, and I told him. And I think Mr. Kissinger was asking me because he wanted to say if he would live, how long he was going to live. Well, he's turned out to have lived a lot longer than my father lived. He's another tough old guy.
He is another. We actually heard him speak at the Nixon Library together.
A very impressive guy. Although I have to say, in retrospect, some of his advice didn't turn out to be as good as it seemed at the time. But obviously a very smart guy. Although, again, if seeing is believing, as one might say, I think Mr. Trump probably has it over all these guys in foreign relations.
Speaking of which, have you ever met the president?
I've not. That is a really good question. I have never met in person, but I had quite a long phone conversation with him in about roughly, I would say, very roughly, 1990. I was researching a piece about something very ethically questionable he had done, having to do with the financing of one of his casino hotels in Atlantic City. I thought it was very questionable. I was writing about it for Barron's, and I called him, asked him about it. He got very offended by what I asked him. He said if I wrote anything along that line, he would sue me. I called my editor at Barron's, a very wonderful guy named Jim Marr, a wonderful, wonderful guy. And he said, oh, please get him to sue us so we can get our lawyers to get discovery of his documents. And please do anything you can. But I didn't do that. I just wrote the story as I saw it. And anyway, the entire conversation with Mr. Trump was many, many different ways and times he was going to sue me.
So you sort of did meet him, though. Most
Over
people,
the phone.
Yeah, I mean, still, that's
I didn't
more
meet him
than.
I met him over the phone and had the pleasure of being threatened by him. So I think many people have been threatened by him about lawsuits. But if you have Dow Jones standing behind you, you don't need to worry that much about lawsuits.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. We are talking tonight about people Ben has met, but we also are going to get to people Ben wishes he met or has or wants to meet. And on that note, Ben Boychuk, why don't you tell people where they could find us?
Well, you can, of course, if you're almost certainly watching this on YouTube, but if you haven't subscribed yet, please do at the World According to Ben Stein. You can find us on Facebook, like us there at the World According to Ben Stein. And last but not least, Parler, which is much shorter, at Ben Stein.
And I want to welcome everybody back to The World According to Ben Stein. This is a game we often play as we drive down to the desert of who has Ben met and who has Ben not met. But I want to tell an interesting story. This is about 4 years ago. We got invited to an Oscar party by a friend of Ben's, and it was the Oscar party. And Ben and I went, and we had the enjoyment of listening to Snoop Dogg perform.
Yeah, I just got up on the stage and out of nowhere started to perform, and people were very, very excited. And I thought he was great. I was really, really impressed. And it was a great party. And it was Jimmy Kimmel's party. And it was great. It was absolutely great. I really had a good time. I'm sure I'll never be invited to another one, but that one was great.
It was an amazing time, and we'll welcome Lewis, who's just joined us in a second. But the funniest thing was there were these two very attractive girls there, Ben, and there were conversations started, and they ended up being the stars of that show, Scandal, and it was just two of the stars of this. I didn't know who they were because I had never watched Scandal, but one of them was telling me they had to be up really early in the morning, and it was the end of the show. And I had said, and for some reason they said they had to be on TV. So I said, do you do the weather? And that was my embarrassing moment of the night, because I didn't know why else. But anyways, let's get back to, and let's welcome Mr. Esoteric to the show, Lewis.
God bless you, sir.
Good to be here.
He's not answering. He's not answering.
I said, I'm here.
Oh, God bless you.
Who are you curious to know if Ben has or hasn't met?
Well,
maybe he's not curious about anyone. That's possible.
No. There was that time at the Garden of Allah on Sunset. It was Scotty Fitzgerald, Ben.
Right, that was way before my time, dear friend.
No, Tallulah Bankhead.
Way before my time.
And Cary Grant.
Way before my time. God bless you, sir, for thinking.
Dressed as the Tin Man.
Yes, God bless you, sir. God bless you for thinking that I'm that durable. That's very kind of you.
Did you ever meet the one Orson Welles?
Yes. Now that is great. I'm so glad you asked that. There used to be a very, very smart, rich guy named Merv Griffin who owned a lot of real estate, a lot of hotels. He was a very durable Hollywood persona. And he also had a talk show. And by an amazing stroke of good fortune, incredible stroke of good fortune, one day, I'd been a guest on his show a number of times. One day, they called and asked if I would be a guest. And then they called me just before, maybe the day before, and said, well, Merv can't make it. He's got a friend of his replacing him, Orson Welles. Sure enough. I thought they were kidding. There was Orson Welles when I got there. And he interviewed me, not for very long, but actually longer than you might think, maybe 20 minutes. And I just thought to myself, my God, I'm being talked to by Orson Welles. I was very impressed. The only thing I remember him saying, now this shows you how much the world has changed. He said, do you ever notice that you get as much news in 5 minutes of radio news, when the radio, in those days, it would be 55 minutes of rock and roll and then and commercials and then 5 minutes of news. And he said, do you ever notice you get just as much news in 5 minutes on the radio or 6 minutes on the radio as you do in a half hour on the nightly news broadcast? And I thought that was a very good point. And I've always, of course, everyone's an admirer of his, but I was even more of of an admirer of his after that.
Two quick things about Orson Welles.
Yes.
The last TV talk show interview he did was with Merv Griffin.
Really?
He was plugging his movie where he was too ill to finish it. They had to in post-production. It was voiceover work for Transformers. He played a planet. Planet.
Wow.
And my mother saw a very, and I'm going to do a Judah and create my own word, a very porcine. Is that how I would say it? Merv Griffin coming out of the water at the swimming pool at the Beverly Hilton. And she ran toward him like an assassin.
He owned the Beverly Hilton.
I know.
Yeah.
She charged him like an assassin, hand on his very thick wrist or forearm, and said, "My son needs work."
Oh my God, that's a wonderful story.
Well, what does he do? That's the problem. He has a law degree and doesn't practice. And he said, seeing that this woman wouldn't let go, then he should practice.
Oh,
and
that's very good. That's very good.
Yeah. That night I got to hear all night, even Merv Griffin says you should be a lawyer.
Excellent.
That's great. What about
That's
you?
very funny. I like the joke at the end with the Jewish accent. Very, very funny.
Well, she watches. She's got Parkinson's, but the aide showed her our show. And I said, "Did you watch?" Because she knows, she still thinks that your show with Mr. Kimmel is on the air. And this is what she says to me. I saw you with Ben Stein, but then I shut it off because there were other people.
And now you wonder where Lewis gets it from.
Very funny. That's extremely funny.
Batter up, Ben Boychuk.
Well, listen, I've been wondering about one person that I know you've not only met, but you seem to work closely with, and maybe a lot of people now don't know this or realize this or remember it, but tell us about your relationship with Jesse Jackson.
Oh, that is such a good question. May I ask how you even know about that?
Well, in part because the first time I ever met you was at Pepperdine University in 1988 at the Southern California Youth Citizenship Seminar.
My God, you're that young? Holy smoke. Wow.
Well, and I was one of the kids who chased you down to your car to get an autograph from you.
I wasn't born yet.
Wow.
And you had mentioned he wasn't even born yet.
I wasn't even born yet.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that either it came up in the Q&A or you mentioned it in the course of your remarks. And I always thought that was really weird, but really interesting.
Well, I think it's extremely interesting. I can't remember what year it was, but I would think it would have been roughly 1984. Roughly, I'm not sure exactly when. I was called by Michael Korda, who had been my editor at Simon & Schuster for my first couple of books. Very smart guy, very funny guy. And he said, "I have an unusual writing assignment for you, and I'm calling on you because I know you work very hard, you work very fast. Jesse Jackson is writing his autobiography. He had a ghostwriter, but and they finished the first draft, but Jesse didn't like it. And he wants a better ghostwriter. He wants the best ghostwriter money can buy." And I said, "Well, you've come to the right man." And they didn't wind up paying me that much at all for doing it. But anyway, he said, "I'd like you to read the draft we have," which I did. I thought it was actually not bad at all. And then he said, "I'd like you to go meet Reverend." And I did. I flew to Chicago to meet him. And we had a nice talk. And he said, "You'll do fine." And they started paying me. And I started, first of all, researching his life, and then also and then I made several trips to Chicago to talk to him. And he came out here to gorgeous, glorious, sunny Cal a number of times. And I had quite a good relationship with him, although he did some things that I found very strange and offensive. Like we were staying at he was staying at a hotel in Mid-Wilshire, not a fancy hotel at all. And he claimed something was wrong with the shower and it hurt his foot. And he had a big foot. God, did he have a big foot? He took his foot out of his slippers or whatever was in, called the manager of the hotel, showed him his foot, showed him whatever injury he thought he had suffered, sort of stuck his foot in the man's face and said, I want you to take care of this. The man said, well, of course we'll pay for your doctor. And Jesse said, oh, no. He said, you're gonna pay for my hotel room, all my friends who are staying here, their hotel rooms too, and food for the time we're here. You're gonna pay for all that stuff, unless you want a line of protesters marching outside your hotel for a month saying what a racist you are. And so, of course, Jesse got his way, and I heard him give many speeches, several speeches, not many, several speeches. He was a very good speaker, and he said very smart things. He was an extremely smart motivational speaker. He spoke to young Black people, and he said, you can complain about racism all you want. I'll be right there with you. You can march all you want. I'll be right there with you. You can demonstrate all you want. I'll be right there with you. But if you stay in school, learn a trade, learn a skill, learn a craft, stay with it, plumber, electrician, roofer, anything that requires skill, you're going to be able to earn a living and have a middle-class lifestyle and support your family comfortably for the rest of your lives. And if you're really interested in studying, you go to law school, medical school, you're going to be able to live an upper-class lifestyle. It doesn't matter what your race is. You're going to get steady, well-paid work. And I thought that was a very, very good thing to tell his audiences. And he also said some other very funny things having to do with Black people and Jewish people, which I probably should not repeat. I don't think I'll repeat. But I was quite impressed with him. But at the end of the day, he said, look, we're not going to go forward with publishing this book, even though you did a fine job, because I'm going to be president. By this time, it was clear he wasn't going to get the nomination. He was running for president that year. He was not going to get the nomination. He said, I will next time, and then I'll be president, and you can rewrite the book, including my being president, and it'll be a much bigger seller. So that's why we stopped working on the book. But I found him a very dynamic character, although somewhat frightening.
So Ben Boychuk, I think you just found out more than you will ever find out the many faces of Jesse Jackson, as told by Ben Stein.
We have only scratched the surface of it.
Ben, a lot of the people in attendance have just a ton of questions of people you've met. Have you ever met Michael Jordan?
No, I have not.
Have you ever met, Rock Breath asks, this is my favorite. Have you ever met Peter Falk?
I think I did, but if I did, it was so long ago that I don't remember for sure. But I think I did when we were both on some kind of panel on CNN a long time ago.
What about?
I have a Peter Falk story.
Okay,
what about Muhammad Ali?
I don't want to shut you out. Go ahead.
What about Muhammad Ali?
Yes, that's a really good one. I'll tell it very quickly, Mr. Lewis. Fine, because I'm sure your story is very good. I was when I was working at the Wall Street Journal. I was invited to a lunch at 21, very fancy restaurant in New York, but not very good food, but very fancy. And they put me, and the host of this lunch party was none other than Muhammad Ali. And he had the biggest neck I've ever seen in my life. And I sat right next to him for an hour and a half. I just marveled at his neck. It was just an incredible neck. Okay, yes, sir. Lewis, sir.
So yes, my very quick Peter Falk story. I'm sitting at the Fountain Coffee Shop at the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Sadly enough, closed now.
No, they're open, but they're outdoors.
Sir, they're not open with doors.
Eucaria was my server. You can go there. They're outside. They're in the courtyard.
Okay, sir, I'm there almost every day. They're not out there with the greatest respect.
They close it at 2:30. I was there. Anyway. Denise, Eucaria, Ruth, I know them all. So this is years ago. I'm sitting at the counter with my friend, and to my right, the only other person there is Peter Falk.
Wow.
And I say, Murder by Death is a great film. And I'm not one to approach or interrupt or in any way disturb a celebrity, but here was someone that was sitting by himself. And this is what, so he says to me, that's it. and I'm not going to do it. I can't do an impersonation, but he says,
Do it. Do it.
That's a murder, but
Yeah.
Doc Simon did a picture. Murder, isn't that funny? And he says to his wife, who then had entered the coffee shop, he's telling, Doc Simon did some movie called, and I realize he's in some stage of dementia. And the sweat is just cascading down my face because he doesn't know that he starred in this movie and then did another form, also by the same director, written by Neil Simon, which was The Cheap Detective. And fast forward 3 weeks later, I'm reading in the Beverly Hills Courier how whoever his caregiver wasn't watching, and he wandered off down the street into the main drag, whether it was Beverly or Rodeo. And about Michael Corda.
Louis, we got to go to a break, but thank you for leaving great lasting memories of Peter Falk in all of our
Louis, I'd like to know where this courtyard is, because I go there.
It's outside
every day.
It's outside
by the pool.
No. It's if you take the garden path from Crescent, and you're walking toward the Polo Lounge, and you see that pink brick wall that's sort of horseshoe shaped, and there are booths on the other side where you'd be sitting, dining al fresco. Well, on the garden side, that you've created a little nook, and they've put the counter out, and they're open 8:30 to 2:30 or 3 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Louis, for the Beverly Hills Hotel hours.
Thank you very much. I will check it out tomorrow, sir.
And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. We're talking tonight about people Ben has met or people hasn't met. We found some amazing people. Obviously, Muhammad Ali, Orson Welles, and for Remzos and Stan Lee. But on that note, Ben Boychuk, why don't you tell people where they could find us?
Well, please, since you're almost certainly watching this live on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. It'll only take just a second to do it. Like us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein, and follow us on Parler at Ben Stein.
God bless you.
Thank you very much, and welcome back to The World According to Ben Stein. We're talking tonight with people that Ben Stein has met or people hasn't met. I'm sure Remzo has a few interesting ones he'd like to ask, so go for it, Remzo.
Yeah, and I think Ben Boychuk will appreciate this. Mr. Stein, have you ever met Robert Downey Jr.?
Yes. I worked
Senior
on a movie
or junior?
with him.
Junior.
Sir, a senior, yes. I tell you, I met him because he was a member of a modest but extremely well located club called the Mulholland Tennis Club, and it was off Mulholland Drive, near just west of Mulholland's intersection with Laurel. And he and I had lockers very near each other, and I met him a couple of times. So I met him. I did not know him well at all, but I did meet him there.
And what about Junior?
I believe, unless memory is failing me, that he and I worked on a movie together. And I think, if I have this right, the movie was called Soap Dish. And I think he was in that, and maybe another movie. I was in a lot of movies, and they all sort of blend together. But I think he had a part in Soap Dish. I'm not sure, but I know I worked in a movie with him, and it couldn't have been nicer. Oh, and you know what? I later ran into him at a wonderful restaurant in Malibu that is now closed, called Granita, and he was, again, very, very friendly, and so he was a fine guy as far as I was concerned. I had no idea he would become such a big star, but he certainly has.
Remzo, is that it for you, or do you have any more?
Okay, my favorite director, Francis Ford Coppola.
I have a slightly funny story to tell about that. Years ago, when I was thin and cool looking, I was on a train in the East going from Washington, D.C. to either to New York or with a change of trains to New Haven, Connecticut, where I was in school. I met a very pretty young woman, and I won't say her name, but very pretty young woman. And she turned out to live in San Francisco. And she said, if you're ever in San Francisco, let's get together. And when I was I happened to be traveling a lot at a certain point in my life. I was in San Francisco. I called her. We had a very romantic evening, and I spent the night there with her. And when I woke up in the morning, the phone was ringing, and she told me to get it. And it was Francis Ford Coppola, who seemed very surprised that a man was answering the phone. And I forget what this woman said to excuse the problem, but she said something. I just had a brief talk with him and just said, I'm just passing through or something. I'm just looking at some property or something. I don't remember. I said something to help her get over the situation. And she later married someone quite well-to-do, and I guess became well-to-do herself. So anyway, I met him over the phone. That's all.
It's still pretty remarkable to meet Francis Ford Coppola.
You know, I, as you often say, Judah, I'm like that character in the movie.
You're the genius Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Well,
no, Chauncey Gardner.
Who's Chunky Gardner?
Chauncey Jersey Kaczynski. Come on.
That was a great movie. That was a very good movie.
Did you meet David Hockney?
No, I don't think I ever have.
Oh, which somebody else actually brought up. Did you ever meet Andy Warhol?
No, didn't. Oh well, you know, it's possible I did, because as I was saying a few minutes ago, when I was working at the Wall Street Journal in charge of coverage of almost all artistic events, I obviously couldn't cover them all. I was just invited to so many parties of high-end artistic, artsy, craftsy people that it seemed like at one point I had met everyone in New York, but I might have. So, but I just don't remember. It was a long time ago, and I met so many people I don't remember them all.
So I'll ask you one more, as many as the fans keep asking. But one of them asks a good question. Have you ever met Jimmy Stewart?
I'm sorry?
Jimmy Stewart, James Stewart.
No, I would have liked to have. I really thought he was a great actor and a hero of World War II, a great guy.
What about you, Ben? I know you have a few more.
Alec Baldwin.
I met him. I think we discussed this
for the show.
I discussed with Judah a couple of times. I think I met him again. As you can tell, my memory is getting kind of poor. I think I met him at a party. I think after after some Republican had been elected, and he had very, very loudly said he would move to Canada if this person were elected. And I think it was before Trump. I think it was one of the Bushes. I think it was Bush.
Yeah, this was 2004, Ben. It was 2004.
Bush 43. And I think he had said he would leave the country. And I said, "Are you still here? Couldn't you get a U-Haul? If you need it, I will lend you the money to rent the U-Haul." And I don't know. He was kind of spiteful and mean to me after that. But I did make the offer, and he's still here.
What about you, Lewis? I know you have a few that are cracking. The serious ones, Lewis.
Yeah, no, I'm being serious. Let's see here. Robert Altman.
No, and I would like to have met him because that movie about
Silent Honor.
What is it called?
Silent Honor, about Nixon.
No, not that one. The one about the country singers and
Nashville. It's brilliant.
Yeah, Nashville. I like that movie very, very much, and I would have liked to have met him and talked to him about that, but I never met him. Would have liked to have.
George Burns.
No, always thought he was very funny. I admired his routine, but never met him.
Jack Parr.
No, but I did meet Johnny Carson, and he was a nice guy. But
you banked at the same bank as him.
Sorry?
You banked at the same bank as Johnny Carson.
Yes. Johnny Carson started a bank at 9255 Sunset, and I was banking next door at City National Bank and was not happy at all with the service there. And someone, I can't remember who, said, Johnny Carson is up at a bank just right next door. And I went over there, and they were as nice as could be. And unfortunately, that bank failed. But luckily, we had Federal Deposit Insurance, one of the great innovations of all time. And so I moved my not at all large accounts to the new bank that took over the assets of Johnny Carson's former bank, and very, very happy with that bank ever since. I am their longest surviving customer.
Okay, so here we go. So I know one of them you for sure met because you guys attended the same synagogue, and I was there when you saw him. So somebody wants to know, how many people from the original Star Trek have you met?
Ooh,
so we know Mr. Spock went to Temple.
Right. Well, Mr. Spock not only was a member of Temple Israel of Hollywood, which I don't even remember whether I'm still a member of it or not. They're so left-wing and provocative and unpleasant in their attitudes about social issues that I may have let my membership lapse, but I probably didn't. And so I met Mr. Spock, Dr. Spock, Mr. Spock there. I'm not sure if I met the guy who later became very large.
William Shatner.
William Shatner. I met him.
Well, that could have also been Scotty, who ate most of the Star Trek villains.
I can't remember where, but I met him somewhere. I think I might have met him at what was then called Morton's at Melrose, which was the absolutely best restaurant in the history of restaurants.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Okay.
It was the best, the absolutely best place in the world, the center of the universe, the number one place in the world. If you've ever seen Casablanca and can think of the modern day equivalent of Rick's Cafe Americain, where everybody comes to Rick's, everybody came to Morton's, and it was one of us. It wasn't Morton's Steakhouse. It was a different Morton's on Melrose. It was absolutely fabulous. I mean, the food was good, but not great. But everybody was there, and if you went there, you always had a good time.
And so,
what about Ma Maison?
Ma Maison was great. How do you? Wait a minute. Who just asked about that?
I did.
Ma Maison was great too. It was really, really great. It was in a parking lot. They had covered it over with AstroTurf or something. Was it on Melrose, Lewis?
Well, I was bussing tables at Scandia at the time, so.
It wasn't. Yeah, it was. I think it was what they had covered up a storefront area with AstroTurf, and they put up umbrellas or some kind or tent or something, and had very, very good food. I think Wolfgang Puck started out as a sous chef there. I may be wrong.
Correct.
And the food was always very good, and all the cool people were there.
Okay, so Ben, a lot of people don't know this about you that are listening and that are watching. Lewis does because he is your biggest fan.
I am very, very honored, Lewis. God bless you.
But you have written columns for many different people. So you've written. So you've written for, was it Penthouse?
Yes, for decades, and I had an excellent relationship with their editor, a wonderful man named Peter Block, and I haven't seen him now for a long, long time. But he was one of the great guys in the whole world. And I wrote a column for a number of years for the Wall Street Journal. And I wrote a column for several years for the New York Times. I wrote 4 columns a week for the Los Angeles Herald Examiner, which was the afternoon paper in Los Angeles, until it was shut down for losing money because it just couldn't compete with the LA Times. And that was, I started doing it, I think, in 77 or 78, and did it at least for 25 years afterwards. And that was wonderful, incredibly great work. I loved doing that.
But the one I want to touch on, though, is the one that Lewis's favorite, which is the GQ.
Yeah, John Raby, my mailman in New Jersey, every month, very precocious Lewis would go to the mailbox, and it would just come as the magazine. Then they started putting it in plastic, see-through plastic, and I would open it up, and I would, without fail, I would read Sidney Blumenthal, and then Benjamin J. Stein, as he was known. And I meant to also ask you, when you were writing for Penthouse, I have a late friend who wrote for them. Did you know Kathy Sipe? She used to live out here in Los Angeles, and she was.
I did, and I got it. I didn't even know she had passed away. God bless her soul. I'm sorry.
Lewis is just bringing the living to the show tonight, but no. But get back to, because I love this story of you being so excited to read Ben's piece and
very
explain what it was.
I loved writing for GQ, but then they did me a dirty turn. I told them about a an event marking the passing of Joan Rivers' husband, and I included a very, very close friend of mine and a guy I knew somewhat less well had gone to that event, and they told me some wonderfully clever jokes that Joan Rivers had made about her late husband. And I told one of the editors at GQ about it, and he said, "Oh, please write about that for your next column." And I said, "No, I don't think I should." And he said, "Oh, please, it's such a great story. Please do that, please." And I said, "Well, she's known to be very litigious. She'll probably sue me." And they said, "Well, we're right behind you. I mean, we're a giant publishing company. We're right behind you." So I wrote the piece, and that Joan, sure enough, sued me, and they didn't. And the editor said, "Oh, well, we're not going to defend you. After all, you have to put it up the money yourself for your lawyer. It's very expensive to be engaged in litigation, extremely expensive, and it put me through some serious fear." And finally, we discovered some really, really, really serious misconduct involving someone connected with Joan, not Joan herself, and we thought we mentioned it to Joan Rivers' lawyers, and said we're going to write about this too, unless you drop the suit, and they did drop the suit, and they apologized to me for questioning my integrity, and I apologized to her for upsetting her feelings.
How about this? I read it when John Raby, the mailman, brought that issue. And I went and I sat down in the living room of our colonial 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths.
God, that's a nice house.
Yeah, and read that article by Benjamin J. Stein, as you were known. And I meant to ask you, oh God, now I'm going to forget. And I can't forget because this is such a good question.
We'll come back to me. We'll get back to you after we take a quick break. If you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein, Benjamin Jeremy Stein, America's humble servant. And on the other side, we're going to go to people Ben hasn't met but would like to. And we'll get to Lewis's question after Ben Boychuk tells us where people can find us. Well,
if you did just tune in, you're late and you're going to have to watch the video on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe so you get alerts that the episodes are out. You can find us on YouTube at The World According to Ben Stein. Like us on Facebook at The World According to Ben Stein, and follow us on Parler at Ben Stein.
God bless you.
And welcome back. And Lewis, yes, go for it.
I remembered, because when people ask me how to describe this show, I tell them it's an homage, unintentional, to the David Susskind show, where we go until we go until we fall out of the chair. Did you ever meet David Susskind?
Yes, I did. I think that also was when I was working at the Wall Street Journal, but I'm not positive of that. But when I was working at the Wall Street Journal, I could meet anyone. I mean, all I had to do was say I'm a columnist for the Wall Street Journal. I want to write something that will be mentioning you, and wham, I was in the door. That was.
Can you tell everybody who Susskind was? Because some people may. Would you tell people who Susskind was?
A big Hollywood / New York personality who had an early talk show. And it was considered a big intellectual, although, frankly, in my limited experience with him, I would not have called him that.
That's what Bill Buckley said, too.
So, by the way, 2 questions. Have you ever met the Dalai Lama? Somebody asked.
No, I have not.
Did you ever go to Studio 54?
Never.
And did you ever meet Rodney Dangerfield?
I met him. This is kind of, I think a little bit interesting. There used to be a club on Little Santa Monica in Beverly Hills that was originally started for comedians. And one of the writers on Win Ben Stein's Money was a member, and they were just pleading for members to try to stay open. And he talked me into becoming a member. I can't remember his name now, but of course, Mr. Fine will remember it. It had become a club for anybody in the entertainment business at all. And the food was not very good, but you did see famous people there, and it was a small membership, and everybody knew everybody else. So you did see famous people there, although, as I said, the food was not impressive.
So getting back to it, who have you not met that you'd like to meet? Maybe we could help.
I would like
a campaign.
I don't think there's anyone I haven't met that I want to meet. I just like
Bob
spending time
Dylan.
with some people I already know. Warren.
Bob Dylan.
Oh yes, right. We said that. We talked
Bob
about
Dylan's still alive?
I have never met Bob Dylan. I saw him on Madison Avenue once many years ago when I was walking down the street. He was walking down the street looking very furtive and obviously trying to be sure that nobody engaged him in conversation. And I used to live very near him in a neighborhood called Point Dume, D-U-M-E, in Malibu. And I would ride in those days I was in much better health than I am now. And I would ride my bicycle all around the neighborhood, and he was there, and I didn't never saw him, but I knew where the driveway of his house was, and I would ride my bicycle back and forth and drive it, hoping I would meet him, but I didn't. But I'm told by people who are in a position to know that he's not that happy a person, and that you wouldn't be that happy if you spent time with him.
So getting back to it, though, you wrote an incredible book years ago. I believe it was called The Real Stars. And it's sort of juxtaposing this whole conversation we just had, because Ben, you're not impressed by celebrity. It's not your thing. What you are impressed with is the people who have served this country.
Right, the people who offered up their lives to serve this country. I mean, you could say I served this country. I was a civil servant for various government departments, and I worked at the White House. So you might say I served this country, but no, I'm talking about people who offer their lives to protect us, and those people are the real stars, and they're wonderful, incredible people. You don't know any of their names. When they die, nobody important goes to their funeral. If somebody is rude to them or mistreats them, you don't see a thing about it. If they can't pay their mortgage because they're paid so meagerly, you don't see a thing about it. If they get divorced because their wives can't stand their being away on deployment so long, or the husbands can't if it's a woman on deployment, you don't read about it in any of the big newspapers that you see at the supermarket checkout. Those people, to me, are the real stars. The real stars are the people who get up, put on the uniform with the American flag on the shoulder patch, and go out on patrol and risk their lives every day for us. And I am enormously impressed by them, enormously. Now, in most of the cases where they are deployed, there's some question about whether they should be there at all, but they are there, and they're incredibly impressive. And the members of the greatest generation who fought in World War II and Korea, and then in Vietnam, which we should never have been in, but we didn't know any better. They're real incredible people. My father-in-law, who passed away in '94, was one of them. He was a career Army officer, graduate of West Point in 1944. He graduated the same day as D-Day in Normandy. He was sent to Forward Observer Training School and to Artillery Training School, and then immediately shipped off to Europe very, very soon after graduation, and fought in one battle after another. And he was a Third Army, and he really fought some horrible battles, and wound up at the end of the war fighting against a very determined group of German SS men who had his unit pinned down with machine gun fire, and he circled around behind them and killed them, and killed the guys manning the machine gun. And for that, he was given the Silver Star. And he then, as a middle-aged man, went to fight, not to advise, but to fight in Vietnam, and won another medal, a Bronze Star, and also a Distinguished Service Medal, not the Distinguished Service Cross, but a Distinguished Service Medal for fighting against the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese. This was a brave guy, never bragged. Tears came to his eyes when he talked about his friends who had died in World War II and in Vietnam. And my wifey and I, a couple of nights ago, were watching the trial of the Chicago 7. Normally, I would really hate the people in that movie, but Colonel Denman, my father-in-law, said to Alex, that's my wife, and me, if I were your age and we're in school, I would demonstrate against the war in Vietnam. We've got to end it. It's a meat grinder. We're never going to get anywhere. Just more and more Americans are getting killed for no reason. I wish I were able to demonstrate along with you. Please demonstrate all you can.
That was absolutely amazing. And Remzo, you were a member of the military? Is that what you're saying?
Army National Guard.
That's yeah. you're 25 years old. I mean, you every day we're learning these incredibly impressive things about you, and that is something that a real star. Ben Boychuk, I saw you wanting to chime in for a second.
Sure. Well, in terms of people that you may have wanted to meet, you worked for 2 presidential administrations. How many presidents have you met?
I met Mr. Bush. I met Eisenhower.
Oh,
I was
okay.
very, very young when I met Eisenhower. I met Lyndon Johnson for an amazing thing. I was dating a girl who was at Sarah Lawrence, who was the daughter of the Secretary of the Treasury, Henry Fowler. Her name was Susan Fowler. And she invited me to a party at the White House in honor of the Princess Christina, I think she was, of Denmark. And so Lyndon Johnson came over and greeted us all at the party in the East Room of the White House. I met Mr. Nixon many, many times, and many times. I met Bush 41 at a Republican convention. I met Bush 43 at a Republican convention. And I think I told you a few minutes ago, I talked to Mr. Trump on the phone.
And didn't they want you to speechwrite for Ronald Reagan? But
yes. I met Ron. You're so right. Thank you, Judah. I spoke at a Republican women's club in Bel Air here in LA in 1980 when Ronald Reagan was running against Bush for the Republican nomination. And I gave what Mr. Reagan thought was a very good speech. And he asked me if I would be a speechwriter for his campaign. And I said, I'm already promised to do some speechwriting for Bush, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush. And so I can't. And that was, but then Mr. Reagan was kind enough to call me and compliment me a couple of times on columns I had written in the Herald Examiner that were later syndicated praising his work. And so that was very nice, very, very nice. And I had dinner all by myself with Nancy Reagan out at the Reagan Library. She invited me to speak and then to have dinner with her, just her and the waiter, in a little room at the Reagan Library.
I am so glad we're recording all this and getting this all down, because I mean, I look at Remzo's face, I look at Ben Boychuk's face.
It's amazing. It's like a time capsule, but a person.
Yeah, it is. I'm like a time capsule. I'm not quite buried yet.
Not even buried. Ben, you're not even close to buried. God bless you.
God bless you. God bless you.
I have to. I'm being pulled away because I have to take my family to we're going to see a drive-in movie. But three very quick things. One, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Two, I was involved in a much lesser battle where I was surrounded by Germans. This was the battle, you may be familiar with it in Beverly Hills. This was the battle for the retaking of Bistro Gardens. Fighting. Yeah. And then finally, did you meet, and I'm going to go off the air, so I won't know this. It's going to be a mystery to me. Did you ever meet Buck Henry?
I don't think so. I have at one of those parties in New York. I don't know. Just don't remember.
And and actually, but Ben's not actually the biggest Buck Henry fan. I'll share that, right? I don't think you're the biggest Buck Henry fan.
I don't think so.
One of my favorite shows was Get Smart, but Remzo, I love watching. I mean, this is what I go through. I love watching.
I'm Puerto Rican. I'm very expressive.
I love watching through your eyes and Ben Boychuk's eyes and people in the audience. I love that you get a piece of what I get almost on a daily basis of when Ben brings these people up, that I'm sort of sitting there. It's like that time when we were dog walking, and I've brought this up before, and I asked him how he left the White House, and he just matter-of-factly told me that Rumsfeld called him on the phone and said, Ben, do you like your job? And he said, yes. And he said, you might want to start looking for another one. And I remember we're dog walking, and he's telling me this like, Remzo, you and I got fired like by McDonald's. You know what I mean? Just so matter-of-factly. And Ben Boychuk, I'll let you ask a few more, because I love that question about the presidents. I think that was an incredible question.
So I thought you meant Clinton, though. Didn't you? Weren't you at law school at the same time? Or
I'm sorry, say again?
I thought you meant Bill Clinton, though.
No. Bill, I met Hillary. I was a third year, and she was a first year. I met her.
Okay.
But then Bill came the next year, and I never met him.
Okay.
But I forgot this. It's really amazing how much I've forgotten. When my father entered immortality or stopped aging, as one might say, he called me with a telephone condolence call and sent me a very, very, very nice condolence letter.
Oh, that's
What
very
about the most interesting plane ride you've had? Which would be when you flew with your parents.
Oh my God. Wow, what a memory! God, you have a good memory.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not a memory. How do you forget?
It's just not.
I mean, how could I forget?
It's not that was the most interesting plane ride because I am interested in beautiful girls that more than anything else really. And I had one plane ride where I was sitting next to a very, very pretty girl, and we ran into extreme turbulence in the air. And I said to her, I think we're all going to die. And she said, yeah, it looks like it. And I said, well, you're a beautiful young woman. Can I kiss you before we all die? And so we were like making out furiously on the plane while we were going through this rough weather. And then we landed safely. And I actually saw her a number of times after that. And interestingly enough, her nickname was Trixie. And so she lived in an incredibly beautiful part of Northern California. And I visited her there.
That wasn't the plane ride I was referring to. You're referring to
the one where I went with my parents and Secretary Schultz to Japan. And the plane was called Air Force Two. It was a plane for high officials of the White House. And it had been fitted out so that the luggage rack where you would normally put your suitcase was a bed, and you could climb up there on a little ladder and lie down there and sleep on a real bed, not a chair that reclined, but a real bed. But it was a pain in the neck if you wanted to get down in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom.
But I'll say the last thing, and I'll let Remzo and Ben get in here quickly. Ben was meant to be on a plane, and this is a true story.
Oh my God.
This is an absolute true story.
Oh my God.
What was this in the 70s? There was a plane that
it was when Joan Rivers sued me. I wanted the best lawyer I could possibly get. And the smartest guy I knew who practiced trial law was a guy who had been in my class at Yale, John W. Kecker, a fantastically capable man, and a brave Marine in Vietnam, an incredible guy. And I called him up and I said, I mean, the case is all over the newspapers. He knew very well about it. I said, I'd like to talk to you about representing me and what our first steps should be. He said, well, I'm really busy. I can't come down to LA, but you can come up here. And so I made my reservation on a plane. I think at that time the airline was called PSA. And I went to the airport and I ran into very heavy traffic, and I missed my plane. At that time, PSA was running a flight every hour, so I didn't have to wait very long for my next flight. And the plane that I was supposed to be on but missed because of traffic crashed. A man had hijacked it. A disgruntled employee had gone into the cockpit with a gun and shot the pilot and co-pilot, and then made the plane crash, killing himself and all the passengers. And I was supposed to be on that plane and missed it because I ran into a traffic jam. When I got to John Kecker's office, my wife had been calling frantically because she'd heard about the crash, knew that I was supposed to be on that plane. And she was so relieved when she found out that I wasn't dead. It was wonderful. It's just absolutely wonderful.
I mean, Remzo, like I said.
What do I say?
Remzo, your expression and Ben Boychuk.
God has been very, very good to me. Unbelievably good. Unbelievably good to me.
Your expression and Ben Boychuk's expression is an expression I've had on my face for many a year. Remzo, do you have any last thoughts?
For now.
I really want to pick one that's out of left field. O.J. Simpson.
Met him many times. Because he used to go to Mr. Chow a lot, and I used to go to Mr. Chow really a lot, and he very, very often was at the next table next to mine, and we got to know each other a little bit, not a lot. And also he used to go to Morton's at Mon Melrose, not as often as Mr. Chow, but Morton's at Melrose, and I would see him there. Now there's no restaurants like that anymore, at least not that I know of. If anyone knows of one, I'd like to go to it. And there you are. So, but I met him many times.
Remzo, you forget Ben also used to do commercials with Shaquille O'Neal.
That's
I
right.
mean-
I worked with him. He was a very smart guy. Very, very funny, smart guy. Very.
I just
very
I
funny
just
jokes.
watched I watched the trial of O.J. Simpson on Netflix, and I actually went and Googled the Hertz commercial he was in, and apparently that was like the #1 commercial ever.
Sure, baby.
I'm
I
like,
can't. Yes, that was the biggest commercials on the air in the 80s. And
my God.
late 80s, early 90s. Ben Boychuk, final thoughts.
Yeah. This has been a pretty remarkable hour.
God bless
There's
you.
one person that I wish you could have met. That was my father, Benjamin Michael Boychuk Jr.,
Wish I could have too.
who passed away in June of 2017, but today would have been his 89th birthday.
God bless his soul. God bless
And I
his
miss him very much.
Well, I miss. My father died in '99. I miss him keenly every hour of every day.
Yeah, me too.
And I love that
Keenly.
you guys are sharing it. And Ben tells me every day, be blessed that your father's alive. And everybody
Yep.
that's listening, be blessed that your parents are alive. Call them as often, as much as you can and as possible, especially through these trying times. Remzo, and everybody listening, this was an incredible, I don't want to call it a time capsule. It's just a partial glimpse into the world according to Ben Stein and Ben Stein's life. And I think treating people with respect and dignity and honor, you meet people along you meet all different people. And that sort of sums up a lot of great things in your life, Ben. And
very much so.
I'm always glad to be part of the drive.
God bless you,
And,
sir. It's an honor. It's an honor, sir.
And
Thank you. very much.
that's all the time we have for this edition. And I'm really sorry for your loss, Ben. And
God bless you, sir.
that's why he gave blood
Ben,
today in
very
honor
sorry.
of his father.
Thanks.
And it's an incredible thing. And that's all the time we have for this edition of The World According to Ben Stein. Thank you again, Ben Boychuk of American
bless.
Greatness. Where can
Thanks.
people find you, Ben?
Oh, find me on Parler at bboychuk3. That's BBOYCHUK 3, numeral 3. And check out American Greatness at www.amgreatness.com.
And Remzo, tell us how people, I mean, because you're all over the map. And
all over the place.
you got books, podcasts, everything.
Well, On the Run is my podcast, On the Run with Remso W. Martinez. You can find me on iTunes. Episode 13 of the Second Print Comics podcast, which I do every Wednesday with a remarkable gentleman named Mark Clare. Comes out every Wednesday. That's Second Print Comics podcast. And you can find me on Parler just at Remso, REMSO.
And you could find me at Judah Friedman. And it's the best way to sometimes ask Ben questions is just message them to me and I get them to Ben, or comments or anything like that. Because while Ben does write every single one of his posts, he sometimes, I do respond to them. So if you have anything, just respond to at Judah Friedman. And I want to thank America's humble servant, Ben Stein. We salute you, Ben. And I want to thank you all. I'm Judah Friedman. See you next time.
God bless you all.